Уважаемые участники.
Dear panelists, dear speakers, and dear guests, I suggest that we should start our joint event. And we will start this talk with two propositions. First is that I'm so pleased to see so many faces of international community, these young faces with a lot of energy, enthusiastic about what we do, and regardless of all uncertainties and turbulence, there are a lot of people who are interested in moving forward. And another point which is encouraging me is that for the last 10 years, any discussion which is tainted gender-like haven't caused any interest. And just 15 years ago, a London Economic Forum was organized with roundtable discussions with Russian participation, and there were less than half of potential participants in the room. And we witness tremendous shift in Russia. We see audience which is overcrowded, and we see that there is a second portion of chairs is added to the room, and there are several factors which explain it. And those changes in the internationally create certain demand. And if previously the entire world economy was growing steadfast, but now, due to the structural crisis and some political uncertainties, we are coming to a new stage, a phase which is characterized by several factors: rapid change in technology, which creates new niches and demand. And on the other hand, the economic drivers have changed or are being changed. And therefore, internationally, we can say that you can hardly administer business as is. You need to find measures, new approaches. You need to train specialists, and not only to administrate business. It is not master of business administration thing. You need to generate ideas. You need to be creative, and when we run up on this need to invent something new and to get adapted to new technologies, at this point, creative potential, which is characterized by different propensities, and even women, in women it has of different kind, it becomes desired in the market. Therefore, dear participants, you asked about three major conclusions you can get as a result of today's debate, and I haven't I wasn't prepared to such outcome, but I would like to set a tone for this discussion. First, we have a demand for a new type of business, and women in this new creative type of business are extremely competitive. And the second, there are certain issues which accompany your choice. Women have some additional obligations for the family and children, and currently it becomes kind of an excuse. All these issues are in our heads, but we can do it. And our participants can tell us how they do it. And third conclusion that is that we all continue moving ahead, and we continue creating and doing. And I give the floor to Kelsey Rasmussen, and she'll speak about her vision and the specificity of women's entrepreneurship. And her story, please.
Am I on? There we go. Yeah, so for my part, I'll do a small introduction of who I am and what I've done. I am an entrepreneur from Canada who has been fortunate enough to start a number of successful businesses in industries that range from civil construction, so building roads, bridges, dams, airports, that kind of thing, to children's toys. And my experience, and I'm a fairly candid person, so has been one of what I would call continual successful failure and kind of phoenix rising from the ashes. So when I'm asked to talk about my journey through entrepreneurship, I always go back to this one kind of defining singular moment for me when I was about 6 years old, a small girl, and I was asked to draw a picture by the woman who took care of me, and I drew this picture, and it had two suns in the sky, and I presented it to her, and she told me it wasn't a very good picture, and that I should go and redo it. And I took that away for a moment, you know, kind of saddened in the heart and thinking I wasn't very good. And then shortly thereafter decided that it was my picture and I would draw it however it was that I wanted to draw it. And I'm grateful for having had that kind of transcending experience when I was so young, because that really has carried me through all of my entrepreneurial ventures, and that when people have told me that's not the way it's done, or that's not the way it goes, or that's not the frame that we set it to, I've always been able to say, I'm not so sure that you're right. And I haven't always been right myself, but I've had the opportunity to learn through that. And I think more recently I've been afforded an opportunity to win some awards around entrepreneurship and travel the world a great deal. And the thing that really resonates for me is the great difference between the notion that it was just possible that women could succeed in business to a level that meets and exceeds how men do, to a place where it's probable. So that possible to probable piece, I think, is the thing that I'm seeing in every session that I attend like this, where women have really gone beyond the notion of a glass ceiling to the concept that you are limited by whatever it is that you believe that people tell you, if your picture is wrong, or if you're not prepared yet, or you don't have enough education, or whatever the limitations may be, having a family. I have 3 children. They're 7, 3.5, and 2. And you know, so I think it's a matter of definition personally, and less about the external definition anymore. And I think that's really the piece that that I hope people understand about my history.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Хотелось
You just tell the fascinating story about how you just move in the business, having the family, kids. But what do you think might be 2 top things women can do to move all women further ahead in the business?
I think the very first thing is to share our knowledge with other women. I think mentoring other women, no matter what stage you're at. So I used to think you had to become tremendously successful to have something relevant to say. And then I recognized that every step that I took, there was someone just like me, one step behind. And if I can only help her, just a small amount. And I think the notion of being engaged and deeply involved with someone else in helping them is one of the first thing, well, one of the most important things. And then I think the second thing is, again, back to this kind of notion of personal leadership and intention. So I think women can be great leaders because of our, I think, unique experience in many ways. And so we add, I mean, women are the greatest emerging market, apparently. It's like one of the world's greatest untapped resources. And I think the second piece is around us just simply redefining what female leadership is, and recognizing that it's the balance of our own experiences, and that is enough. It doesn't have to be that our business card reads something, that we're doing something positive. I think it's just the momentum in and of itself that we recognize that. That would be the second piece.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much. And quite recently, I had a very interesting discussion at one of the board of directors with 2 wonderful women. Jenny Brittle is one of them, who had been Jack Walsh, deputy and CEO G Capital, and Karen Horn, who was the board member in Hewlett Parker. And when we started talking about what women, how women can be successful, Karen said, which I behind.
Действительно, если возникает ситуация, когда есть чему научить, когда есть чем.
So the situation is that you can share, and you can also have followers, a team, those who share your values and business principles, and your basic life values. Because for interpreters, for entrepreneurs, it's very important to be part of the environment where your commodity will be required. And Irina, can you contribute to this? Irina Eldarkhanova.
Я прошу прощения, я думаю.
I'm sorry, I thought you have already had a brochure introducing us all. Well, let's correct this mistake then. I will introduce myself. I'm Belova Anna, and I'm the moderator of this session. I have a long history in the Russian market, and it is mostly about having jobs in big companies. I was the deputy head of the board of the Russian Railways, deputy head of the board in one of our nuclear power generation companies. I have a long record of work in big companies, like, for example, I was the vice president on corporate development of SUEC. Now I'm the head of the board of International Airport Sheremetyevo, and I also take a number of positions in the boards of some Russian companies. I'm the deputy head of the board of Entrepreneurship Development Center. And
You a little bit.
Yeah, so I had mentioned.
Ну, как я уже говорила, я в своей жизни основала несколько
I think most of my experience gained is 50% education and 50% figuring it out on my own. And so now I sit on the board of the Richard Ivey Institute for Entrepreneurship, and a number of various entrepreneurship boards in Canada and business associations. And yeah, that's essentially what it is that I do.
Thank you. I'm Donna Harris. I'm from the United States. I'm from Washington, D.C. I'm co-founder of an organization called 1776, which is an incubation platform. We provide co-working, an incubation program, an accelerator, a venture capital fund. We run a school and a global events and media platform. We're a couple blocks from the White House, so right in the center of our capital city. I'm formerly the managing director of the Startup America Partnership, which was an initiative to really look at community-level development of entrepreneurial ecosystems and looking at best practices to really foster a sense of vibrancy, to unlock more capital and more mentoring and more resources for entrepreneurs. I'm a 4-time entrepreneur. I've run 2 ed tech companies, a health IT company, and a government affairs consulting firm. I'm also an entrepreneur in residence at Georgetown University, and I'm on the global board of directors for Global Entrepreneurship Week worldwide. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Ирина, пожалуйста.
Я предприниматель.
I'm an entrepreneur. I own several family businesses. One is quite a big company for a Russian market. That's Confael company. We produce chocolate. And from the social perspective, I'm the vice president of Women in Business organization. Good evening. My name is Elena Shifrina, and I'm the founder of BioFoodLab company. We develop technologies and we market natural food products. Probably you are aware about our product. It's called Bite. This is preservative-free snack. And we have taken time to develop technology here in Russia that enables us to manufacture pure natural products. This is the first product of this type in Russia. I was educated in Great Britain. I've graduated from Regent's Business School. Then for 4 years, I held several jobs in TNK-BP, and I had an MBA in Skolkovo. And after that, I founded my own company. Last year, we were awarded the title of Startup of the Year. That was Forbes' title. And our key achievement, last week, we became part of all Starbucks in all Russia. So now when you more or less have a complete picture about who we have around this table, so I would like to give this word back to Elena. So the question was whether there is a demand for a new type of business. I think we all have our own story when we pursue our own career opportunities. But my general impression is as follows. I think there is a demand for extraordinary people. There is a demand for decisive people. We can call them crazy to a certain extent. But this demand has always been there. So, I know, like Kelsey said, 50% of what she achieved is because of her education, and 50% was figured out by herself. Same thing here. I've never tried to pursue specific career opportunities. I, in fact, tried to avoid them, but I was picked out. I was picked up by my managers, and I was placed into certain positions. So I, for example, ended up being a chief engineer of a big company when I was 22. And when I was 28, I have become the youngest director in the Russian Federation. But in fact, I have never tried to achieve these career opportunities. All you have to do is invest all your time and effort and all your heart into what you're doing. There is not a lot of people who are ready to invest that much into their business. So from entrepreneurship perspective, I would say these qualities are given by nature. I think you can develop them to a certain extent. But I personally can say that we lived in the Soviet Union. There was no free market opportunities, and we were basically all employed by the state. But still, I believe that I was engaged in entrepreneurship since I started working consciously. And I actually had a reprimand from my boss. I'm not sure whether this practice is widespread in the Western countries, but I had a reprimand. But I had one of the highest salary in our company, but all this salary has been finally taken up by the state. So I think that if you are ready to be passionate, if you are passionate about what you're doing, you are still an entrepreneur, regardless of whether you're working for yourself or whether you're working for a company. As far as limitations for women in business are concerned, well, I would say, when people ask me a question, do you feel yourself limited? And I personally don't. I feel no limitations when I deal with my business partners or when I deal with the state organizations. Well, I would say there is a time limitation because I cannot devote the same amount of time to business as a man can afford to. And it's not necessarily has something to do with family, because I've grown up kids. I don't need to take care after them any longer. But for example, I'm not going into a lot of business trips because a family is something that is extremely important for me. And family includes husband as well. And my husband doesn't like me being away from home For example, he can wait until I come home at 10 p.m. and he would wait for me without having dinner. And I wouldn't want to be in a situation when my husband feels himself unwanted or unattended. And because there are such cases in business. There are very famous business ladies, those ladies who inspire the whole country, and you know that they have very good personalities. But at the same time, they are totally unhappy because the family is ruined, simply because men find it extremely difficult to be beside a woman who is smarter and who is unable to pay a lot of attention to this man. So it's my personal point of view, but I always promote it. So for certain reasons, I have to drop certain projects because I understand that there is a cost to that. My relationship can suffer, my family can suffer. This is the limitation to women's career in business. So if you are planning to pursue business opportunities, just weigh all the pros against the contras. And as far as creativity is concerned, I do not think that women have some specific limitations. And all those people present in the hall, I think all those people, they've tried to start their business without waiting for specific things, like when the crisis is over, when legislation changes. And had we been waiting for all these things, we would have never started our businesses. Sometimes you can find excellent opportunities even in bad times, so move forward and don't be afraid. Thank you very much. And I would like, Donna, I actually would like you to respond to Irina's comment. So can you please let us know what you think about these issues? What is your take upon these things? And are there opportunities for this gender and social type of choice in the United States?
I was nodding vigorously yes to everything you just said. It's an interesting time to be a woman in business, in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is unique. It's uniquely situated to women. We are entrepreneurial in nature. As women, as wives, as mothers, we have a creative side, a problem-solving side, a multitasking side, an empathy to us that allows us to be really good leaders. And entrepreneurship allows us to create a job that fits within our lives. And also, given what's going on in the landscape of funding and entrepreneurship in general, women are well situated to take advantage of many of the trends that are happening. There's never been a time where funding was more widely available, where there were potential mentors and programs to help us connect to grow our businesses. But it presents some very unique challenges. While we are starting to work towards achieving equality with men, that also means we have an equal opportunity to neglect our families. And the question becomes, is that the type of success we want? Is that what we want to be as individuals and as leaders and people? It's something that I have personally wrestled with quite a bit. I have my husband who is actually here in Moscow with me, off having fun playing tourist today while I'm working. And we have a 4-year-old. And while my business life is very important to me, it is second to my family. And I don't ever want them to feel like my business life has consumed, much like you, my relationship with them. Because businesses will come and go, and the relationships have to be stable. And I don't ever want my child to tell me when he's 18 or 30 that he wished I would have been there, or that I missed key opportunities to be with him. I don't want to miss those moments. So we have to think about, how do we create a success that really makes sense for us? How do we do it in a way that balances our roles? And I think we ourselves have the opportunity to create that. Just as my colleague said that she says no to business trips and turns down opportunities, we have to be comfortable instead of apologetic that that's what we want to do, right? No one is forcing us, except ourselves, to do those things. And it's okay to say, here are the parameters of what I'm willing to do to be successful. And for myself and my husband, we've talked about it. And when there are long trips like this, which is a week long, he comes with me. When I have speaking engagements, I limit the number of evenings out of the week that I'm away from home. And we discuss collectively what are the things that we as a family are comfortable doing to further the things that I'm passionate about. Because for me, this is not just, I'd like to build a business. I'm very, very passionate about entrepreneurship. People who know me from my role at Startup America know, and if you heard my talk yesterday, entrepreneurship truly has the ability to change the world. It can solve the biggest world challenges. It can lift people from poverty. It can teach you a sense of independence in a way that we have no other ways to show. And I truly believe that. And so it's a passion for me, and my husband knows that. And so our family invests time in it. But we end up having to have conversations with our families that men don't have. I don't know a single man who has a conversation like this with his wife about his career. Right? So we have to decide to do it differently than men, and we have to be okay with that, and we collectively have to not apologize for that, because we are 51% of the population. So we shouldn't have to shoehorn ourselves into working the way 49% of the world wants to work. Let's change the dynamic, because it turns out that when you actually sit and talk to many men, they also wish they could be home with their family. They also miss their children. It's that we have created a business structure that says you will give up every single thing in your life to be successful. And it turns out that there's a lot of people who are unhappy with that, not just women. So deciding to be different, and then developing a structure to overcome the real challenges that exist. Because while we are thankfully having a full room of people who want to talk about this conversation, as I look around, the majority of us are women. And it's very hard to change the dynamic when only the women are talking about how do we advance entrepreneurship. There are very real biases that exist in our world that favor men. The fact that most business networking happens at social events in the evening, it still happens in men's clubs. There's too much old boy network at work. And there are subliminal biases that even we as women hold. When you walk into a room and you see a man and a woman standing next to each other, who do you introduce yourself to first? Is it the man or is it the woman? Who do you assume is in charge? That was something I had to call myself on, because it turned out that I also shook the man's hand first. And so now I purposely always, 100% of the time, shake the woman's hand first. So we have to, as a society, recognize that while we're having a wonderful and productive and thankfully having the conversation about women and advancing women in entrepreneurship, we all still have biases that we have to recognize, and we have to be proactive in changing them. And I think the objective isn't for women to succeed the way men succeed. It's for us to change the dynamic so that we meet somewhere in the middle between the way women operate and the way men operate, because that diversity is how we actually get the best of our skills to produce the great businesses and the great jobs for tomorrow.
Спасибо большое, Донна. Ваш рассказ.
Donna, thank you very much. And actually, your story reminds me about a great deal of things. Like 14 years ago, I was nominated the deputy head of Minister of Railway in the Russian Federation. That was the first case when a woman was nominated at such a position for 150 years. That was not the case. There was only men around there. So a woman was perceived as something totally alien to this environment, and that started from everything. Who says hello to who first? And so there was a lot of challenges there, but the biggest challenge, which I didn't think about, was to structure relationship. I was just try to do what I was supposed to do, and then they said, well, you actually can hold a blow, and we never expected a woman to be able to hold a blow. I would like to give a word to Elena Shifrina, and I'm delighted to do so because it is her birthday today. So happy birthday, Elena. Thank you. Thank you. I would also like to say a couple of words about my way in business. When I was 18 years old, I left Russia for UK and went to Regent's Business School in the UK. And since I was a small girl, I had nursed ideas about my own business. However, entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs were looked down at in our country, and you would use a word entrepreneur to offend a person. And so I thought I would go to work for a big corporation, because probably, well, Kelsey and Donna, you can say for yourself, but probably in your case, corporate world is different, but in our case, corporate world is a favorable option for a woman because you can go on a maternity leave for 3 years, and so you will be living your life, you'll be raising your child, and you'll be totally covered from the social perspective, and you will enjoy support from the company. So that was my choice. After graduating from Regent's Business School, I went to work for a corporation, and my career was quite successful in TNK-BP, and executives were watching our performance. So the best performer would be the key trader of the department. So I had the best performance, and then they told me we never used to have a girl heading this department, and I think we wouldn't have it. Let's make you a head of another group. And I said that this is not what we agreed upon before. And they told me, well, you either have that or nothing. And I was disappointed, and I want to pursue my MBA opportunities.
And I understood that the way in the West they treat women, and Kelsey Donna also has some issues with this. In Russia, it's worse. So I had an MBA, and then I returned to corporate world, and I was a fiscal counselor to Raiffeisen Bank, and I was very happy about it. But then an idea occurred, and that I need to set up my own business, but there were a lot of things which stopped me. And I had also a very nice boyfriend, and I wanted to marry him, and I wanted to have children, and I knew that my future is covered. So I had a lot of reservations. But my husband said, yes, I support you, and at least I can ensure you a basic subsistence will be assured, and your idea is excellent. And try. And I said, I'm afraid. And he said, don't be afraid. And so I started Guildford Luck Company. I enrolled people. We did this research and development for a year time. I invested my own private money. When I collected the team, I understood I'm pregnant. And then it was shocking for me, and I did, what shall I do? And the people are waiting. I attracted them from other companies. I promised them golden mountains. And they said most of them are men, and they have 2, 3 children. And what shall I do in this situation? And as soon as my grandfather learned it, he called me and he says, don't leave. Stay. If you leave, you'll stop in your own mental development, and you'll stay at home with your child, and you will focus only on the child, and the world will run away from you. In 2, 3 years, when you come back to business, you will never catch up. And he said, don't leave. Do your best. And I thought, okay, I'll follow women in the West. I heard about it, that I can work until the very last day of pregnancy, and then 2 weeks after the delivery, I was back in office because I had responsibility, I have commitments, I had a team, and my delivery was fine. And I was back in the office. I don't regret about anything. I share the opinion of Irina, Donna. I know that the children are the most important. I'm in love with my daughter. I'm crazy about it. But my first months with life, when I couldn't spend much time with her on the nights and weekends, I don't think I sacrificed them, because she's proud of me. And my friends also tell me, and these women tell me, so I was with you all the time, and I sacrificed my life to you. And women want to achieve something in their lives, so a girl should be proud of me, and this is what drove me to on this path. My daughter is 1 year old, and she needs me, and she cries when I leave. But the game is worth the candle, because I believe in success, and success follows me. And I believe our major challenge is to keep women at her working place, because they actually meet the man, they fell in love, they stay at home, and if the husband is successful, they can open a business somewhere else, and not always it's profitable. And I counted statistics. I read about statistics that in Europe and US, those marriages are solid, where both man and wife, they work and they behave like loving partners. And this is the model for my family. And we are partners. My husband loves me and supports me. And I would like to wish all girls and young lady entrepreneurs, say, leave your maternity leave, go to office, and you need to don't allow you to slacken. You need to take more commitments, and then you will achieve more, and our risk capabilities are inexhaustible. Elena, thank you. I would like to ask the participants of our discussion to tell us the following. Kelsey, my question will be for you. Certainly, when a professional career runs forward, and then we run upon certain challenges and real problems, and when you're facing a choice, we make choice, and we live with it. And we have a very short time for decision making. And later on, we come back and we say, probably I should have acted in another way. Can you just tell me when you made a very serious choice in a very limited time, and then you say, maybe it was a mistake, but I learned from it? Did you have these situations?
The one that comes most to me was, and again, I'm happy to be very truthful about it. I had grown my business, my construction business, relatively quickly, and I was generating a lot of business, and more than I could keep up with. And at the time, I had just had my eldest daughter, and when I had her on a Friday, and I went back to work on the Monday, and I brought her into my office, and she stayed with me until she was 9 months old in the office. But the point of that being was I was quite busy with a lot of opportunities and a new child, and a great thing presented itself, and I frankly was quite greedy. And so I knew that it was a very risky deal. I didn't know the joint venture partner well at all, but I was getting quite a bit ahead of myself, and I made it a bad choice to enter into a bad business agreement with someone who I knew, but part of the noise from the background was, a man would do this. A man would take this work. What, people are going to think I'm crazy if I turn it down. To Irina's point, and so I wish just about every day that I hadn't done that. But the best thing that came out of it was I say no a lot more than I say yes, which has actually afforded me a tremendous amount more success than had I stayed on the path of saying yes to everything. Now I say yes to the things that I know are strategically in alignment with where I'm headed, the people who work with me, what they value, and that way I'm actually building something quite exceptional, I think, as opposed to something that becomes of other people's design by saying yes everywhere. And I've checked the greed to the side and realized that entrepreneurship really is very much more so about the process, the year in working at something and making nothing until the time that you have it. And then you go ahead and have tremendous success. So, so the kind of two sides of that, the greed was bad, and the no is a good answer.
Спасибо большое. Донна, какой у вас?
Thanks, Donna. Do you have certain lessons to share? A choice which you did one day, and which actually was a lesson for you?
We have dozens that I can share because I think the point that Kelsey made is a really good one, which is that we have to understand that it's about the journey and not the conclusion, right? It's great when the conclusion is a positive and wonderful and fantastic one, but there's more to be had from the journey than just the outcome, right? So some of the best things that have ultimately occurred in my life happened because something else fell apart. So I also am very happy to be candid. I was running a company for 5 years. It was a company that I built with myself and my co-founders. We had pretty good success, but it was in very, very difficult economic times. It's a company that we started after the US stock market crashed in 2000, managed to build it till 2005. But I had to scrape together investment from people who I thought were high caliber, high quality, integrity people. They were people who talked quite a bit about the importance of integrity and whom I thought I had a friendship with. But it turns out that that only lasts as long as we're all headed in the same financial direction. And we had something happen that was quite out of my control. We had one of our investors who passed away. And it created a domino effect for my company in that when he passed away, his family decided that they no longer wanted to honor their investment commitment in my company. And the rest of my investors pulled out. So literally overnight, we went from one of the hottest up-and-coming companies to, are we going to declare bankruptcy? And it was a bit like having an out-of-body experience, because if you've built a company for 5 years on literally blood, sweat, tears, it was a very, very emotional time for me. And so we managed to sell the company and we managed to make everybody whole, but it certainly didn't provide me the return that I would have wanted my 5 years to give me. But I learned a lot about looking at people's behavior versus the words coming out of their mouth. So when people tell you that they're people of integrity, but you feel something in your gut, the little red flag saying that maybe what you're hearing doesn't really ring true, you should listen to that voice. We as women are particularly gifted with the voice of intuition, and we should give honor to that. We should definitely listen to it. It's one of the biggest learnings of my early years of my career. So I ended up literally not only selling the company, I ended up in a dispute with my investors over some things that I thought they were doing that were not ethical. And I got fired from my own company for standing up for what I believed in. And I went through quite a bit of emotional time afterwards trying to process the fact that I owned and started and had taken investment and built friendships with these people, only to find out that when there was a hole in the boat and water was coming in, they were ready to throw me overboard. So there was a big lesson in making sure you understand the difference between business relationships and friendships, because they're not always the same. The great part about all of it is that life has a wonderful way of taking you where it wants you to go. And I would have never left my home city had that not happened to me. And so when that happened, I was ready for a fresh start. And so I moved to Washington, D.C., which several months later, I met my now husband and have a great family. And many of the experiences that I learned while I was an entrepreneur in those early years have informed my perspective about the importance of entrepreneurs in the global landscape, and the fact that entrepreneurs need a layer of support that they're not getting in most cities around the world. I didn't get those supports, and I lived in the United States. I was living in Detroit, And it was incredibly hard to build a business. I can't imagine what it's like to build a business in many parts of the world. And much as you've talked about the challenges here in Russia, the United States is blessed with resources, and yet entrepreneurs there struggle too. So we have an opportunity to create a really fantastic set of supports for entrepreneurs, particularly we as women, because we're networkers and we're connectors, and naturally we want to help each other. So much of what I learned and who I am today and the things I'm passionate about and the things that I now go and speak around the world on came out of one of the worst things that ever happened to me. And so I always tell people, if you look at the tapestry of your life, if you look at the back of a woven tapestry, it's an ugly mess. But if you look at the front of the tapestry, it's a beautiful picture. And you have to make sure that when you're looking at a situation in your life, you understand that it's just one point along the journey. It's not the entire journey. It doesn't define you. And that ultimately, even the worst things that happen to you can be woven into a beautiful picture. So be sure to look to learn from the bad things as well as the good things.
Спасибо большое. В общем,
Thank you very much. So you don't regret, and you should learn, and you should continue moving forward, right? Irina, your experience. I was listening to Kelsey and Donna. I had a lot of memories, those in the back of my head, which I tend to forget. And sometimes I look on my life, and you don't need to see a movie. You see, if you start filming a movie yourself, you will have a better film that everybody can show you in the movie theater. Only now I understand that generally I started from scratch, from zero, and had a period in my life when I had a phenomenal career, and I was at different high positions. I was the youngest, the talented, and the best. But then the time has come when I lost everything. My husband is Chechen, and for 15 years I lived in Grozny, and at one day all the houses, business were lost, and we found ourselves with 1 ruble in the pocket, renting a small flat in Moscow. Therefore, we had to start a business from scratch. And a month ago, I was repairing my house, and as soon as I finished, the house burned down. And nobody knows the reason of it, and it happened to me a month ago. But those who look at me, they say, Irina, you're still smiling, and why don't you tell us what happened to you? We cannot see that you had a terrible trouble. Probably we know that there are values, and I'm saying that nobody was injured, and you have your family and healthy, and the money will come, and you can earn them. And can you imagine it for many Russians? What can happen to a family of Chechen who, during the time of war, came to Moscow to live there, and to start a business there was intolerable. But you still need to know there are some bad events, but you need to think about what good can come out of it and what else can be derived from it, and you shouldn't get despaired. And when you come back, Kelsey, you told us about keeping a child until 9 months in the office. And I recalled when my older son, and I was a director at the time, and once during the conversation he said, Mom, I couldn't come to you and tell you this about some event in his life or some opinion. And I said, why? But you were a director. So for a child, it was kind of a pinnacle of somewhere that she believed I'm inaccessible for him. I believe that this kind of barrier shouldn't be there. And my business experience, the last one, I surrounded by men in my family, and all my family members are men, and I have good support. And once you don't dare to take some controversial decision when it comes to some frictions or opposition, then it's always hard. And so at our land plot, say, we had 40 illegally built facilities. Those we need to actually expel, and you don't know who are the owners, and it was very hard to do it. But how to forcefully do it, and I understood that it can lead to a contact, meetings, or whatever. But while we were away, my son took a decision, and he started doing it. And I say I had pain in my heart. I thought that the world will broke, and but he arranged his relations with people in such a way that without any courts, he liberated the entire land plot from these illegal houses. And I said, thank you for your masculine decisiveness. And I believe probably not all women can do some stringent measures, and it might be an obstacle on our way. Irina, thank you. And can I also comment on something? I can apologize. Unfortunately, still there is a roundtable discussion where I am a mediator. And I would like to excuse myself and to leave. So Irina still has 5 minutes to be with us. Do anybody have questions to her before she leaves?
So we have one question. My name is Elena, and I have one question. You once found yourself in a position that, a really difficult situation. You had to rent an apartment in Moscow, and you had to start your business from scratch. But how did you get this idea to set up a confectionery company? You didn't have professional management service. How did you manage to get this idea and bring it to life? Well, thank you, but this is not comme il faut confectionery. It's Confael confectionery. It's a different thing. It's about... So I came to Moscow 1 month before a war in Chechnya broke out, and my father and my mother, they remained in Grozny. And I wanted my husband to come with me, and we were planning to spend 1 year here, and just for the sake of getting money. So we had a piece of customs and broker business, because in Russia there was, in Ingushetia, there was a special economic zone in which, and we had an opportunity to recover 50% of VAT that we paid for imported goods. And so we set up a customs broker, and we were getting 50% of all VAT rebates that they were getting. So that was the business idea, which helped us to raise the initial capital required for taking other businesses forward. So, and there was only one challenge. It is always very difficult to get tax rebate from the state. And my husband is a very talented and diplomatic person. He knows how to find ways to people, and he knows how to maintain contacts. So it was with his help, he was acting as my media partner. It was with his help we earned our initial capital and set up the business. So one more question. I would like to thank you in public. And you might remember me, Irina. I was in the organizational committee, and we were setting up an event in the Federation Council, and we received a great support from the side of Confael, which is Irina's company. We had a lot of high-ranking guests attending this event, and I would like to say I had an excellent feedback from all the guests. Those were excellent presents to them, so thank you very much. So, and Confael, like this is our product, for example, a chocolate shoe. That's what we make. So Irina, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good luck. Well, in fact, I believe that regardless of whether we're men or women, we sometimes feel cowardly in life, but we get equal amount of chances and equal amount of opportunities from the universe. Sometimes when you do really want it, and all of a sudden you get this, but you are afraid of this, of taking the responsibility for this, and you are afraid to develop and expand your success. Because sometimes you think, oh God, if that was so easy, I will probably have the same luck later, and I can take some rest in the meantime. I had 3 great opportunities in my life. First opportunity was in the model business. I've been working there for 5 years, and I stopped a notch from I stopped and gave up a notch from being a worldly renowned model. Well, I earned big money there, but I was extremely tired. So just switched my phones off, let my manager know that I'm not planning to work any longer, and I became an oil trader. Why did I become an oil trader? Because they get really good money, and I wanted to become a successful businesswoman. So going to work to TNK-BP was another opportunity. So I actually had the chance to make the vice president to stick to his word and to his promise. But I decided to give up again. So I decided to wait for the 3rd opportunity. And when we set up our own company, I had an excellent team, and I became pregnant. And then it was the point when I realized that we don't have that many opportunities just given to us. So we shouldn't stop, no matter how difficult it is. So the key to success is not about having a go and having a try at each and every opportunities that you have. The key to success is to be consistent in pursuing one particular opportunity. If you do this, then you will be making small steps towards your objective, and you will achieve success. I see a lot of young girls coming to my company. They work for 6 or 8 months, and then they go to work for another company. So they keep jumping from one place to another, but they are not getting a full picture of business. They're only getting a piece of knowledge. I'm a firm believer in consistency. When you choose an area of business for yourself, you have an excellent chance to become successful, to become the head of the company, or to become the best expert in your area. But it takes hard daily work. Never mind how difficult it seems. If it is difficult, that means that you are doing it right. That means that you are getting more responsibilities, and it is a kind of a challenge and a kind of a test from the fate. But just be consistent, pursue one opportunity, and do something that you really like to do. Thank you. So before we start answering questions, so I would like to suggest to our participants that they should comment on another idea. Irina has reiterated this thing in her speech. There is some sort of intrinsic choice between professional activities and professional success and family as it is. So did you have this choice, or it's not about a choice, it is about one thing being a supplement to another? And if so, why do you think so?
Two years ago, when our third child was 2 months old, I was diagnosed with cancer. And it was a very rare type, and most people who get this type of cancer are terminal within 18 months. And it clarified for me quite quickly what it was that I was here to do. And which really for me was live a life that gave me great pleasure with deep purpose. And so I still spent the same amount of time at my work and with my children as I did before, because I always put my family first. But the piece that really got clear was the type of time I spent. And I think oftentimes, a lot of women have a guilt thing about not being around their children or whatever it may be. And I came to determine that if the time that I was spending was deep and valuable in both locations, I don't believe that there is a nirvana of work-life balance. I think it's a great marketing tool. It sells a lot of products and services, but there is no one moment where my business is perfectly 100% handled, and and my family is perfectly taken care of and fed and sleeping and all. It's like this for a millisecond, and so I think the notion that your business and your family life are two independent things that can be balanced is it's just misguided. I think the greater thing to do is to, instead of trying to balance that out, is to approach it from a balanced perspective. So I build my life in a way that supports me, so that I'm able to make those decisions in a very balanced way, as opposed to trying to control things, because I know from my history in entrepreneurship and business and health that we have very little control of what it is that comes at us. It's only how we can respond to that. So I think it's really about approaching it in a balanced perspective, as opposed to trying to control those two things.
Donna.
So I would say balance is not the right word. It's more like integration. The way that I make it work is that it's all part of one life. It's not two halves to something. So there are times when I'm working from home. There are times when my child comes to work with me. It all has to be complete as part of a whole. But the part about, you asked about, is there an intrinsic choice between professional and family? I think it has to come down to thinking about passion and purpose. So I'm a person of faith. My faith is what defines me and what also helps me think about my choices. But it also clarifies for me that I have a purpose here on the planet, and oftentimes that purpose is manifested through your work and through the skills and the gifts and the talents that you're given and the people that come into your life and how you interact with them and the gifts that you give them and the gifts they give you. And so for me, I feel very much that my work is my passion. It's also my life's purpose. And it's not about making money. I will be happy if I live a life that isn't impoverished. That it's obviously easier to live when you have money than when you don't. But my purpose isn't the money. My purpose is that I really want people to understand that they themselves have a life's purpose. And for many people, that life's purpose can be brought to fruition through entrepreneurship. So it clarifies for me that when I'm working very intensely because there's an objective that is much bigger than the dollar and the money. But it also clarifies for me that my son is really, really important. And if I haven't been there for him in quality ways, and if I've missed major milestones, that will be a major disappointment for me. But I think one of the points you made earlier about your daughter being proud of you, right? Like my son wears a 1776 t-shirt and he talks about 1776 and he visits and he thinks of it as part of his own, and he's proud of me, and he's only 4. And there's a phenomenal example that gets set for him that work is something that mommy and daddy both do, and that mommy and daddy are partners and they talk about their work, and it's a family where it's all integrated. It's my work, it's his work, it's our family life, it's our time with our son, it's our time away as a couple. All of that fits together and gets integrated, but you have to be purposeful about it. You have to be conscious and proactive about structuring your life in a way that works for you, as opposed to feeling like life is being imposed on you and you're constantly having to either defend your choices or live in a way that isn't authentic to who you are and who you want to be as a person. And it turns out that if you can embrace that approach, and you can be confident and you can tell people what you're doing and why you're doing and why it's important to you, people will respect that, and you actually don't have to apologize for your choices. So it's an integration of the whole.
Thank you, Donna. Elena.
I completely agree with what you said, with what Donna said and what Kelsey said. In Russia, the situation is different, I would say. When my husband proposed to me, I took 3 months off the job to be able to plan my marriage and my wedding ceremony. And I kept calling my husband, I kept asking him questions: where are you? Why are you spending at work so much time? Do you have to go on this business trip on Saturday? Do you have to go to Surgut or Tumen? So I kept torturing him with these questions, but he was in fact doing his job. And I couldn't get around this idea. I was waiting for him. I was just wasting time sitting at home and doing nothing. And in Russia, this situation is quite frequent. A woman marries a man. She gives birth to a child, just sits at home, and 60% of families get divorced. And when a husband leaves a family, he very seldom provides support to the family. There is a lot of husbands who are not supporting their former families and who don't want to see their kids. But I'm a woman and I'm a personality, and out of my own experience I can say that women are just as good in work and business as men are. So I believe that women should retain their jobs, should be able to work, and men should agree to that, simply because for a woman an opportunity to have a job, it is a way to ensure her security. And men actually respect women more when they do have a job. So a job for a woman is a way to express her own personality and is a way to achieve success in career or business. So I don't think there is any alternative here. Women must have a job. That's a fact. Thank you, Elena. I would also like to say a couple of words about my own experience. I've got 34-year record of married life in marriage, and I have a different perspective of it. It was an extremely interesting period of my life and balance, and Donna was right in saying that balance is not the right word for it. It is about integration.
What is tomorrow? И, на мой взгляд, вот все-таки, когда у женщины есть интересная работа.
And I think that when a woman has a good job, when this job develops this woman, that's the value that she gets out of it, and that's the value she brings into her family relationship. I believe that any sort of relationship, like relationship between loving partners in marriage or relationship between parents and kids, this is something which is given by default. This is something that has to be constructed as a result of a very extensive communicative project, and that requires investment of your efforts, investment of your time. And so we have to invest in our family life so that people who are beside you will feel the warmth of your love. And they would know that no matter how busy you are, you will always find a minute for them. I have two sons, grown-up sons, and they always saw that father and mother were very busy. But it was an excellent lesson for them when we were moving forward, and it was quite difficult. But we still managed to find certain elements that brought us together, like a joint dinner or joint trip somewhere. And this is what makes us happy in our life. So, and when a person has got a lot of these moments in his life which bring more value to the others, that person is always interesting to all those who are beside him. So I suggest that you should never have this choice between your career and your family life. It is about achieving the synergy between these two concepts, and these are two integral aspects of our life. So I urge you not to make this choice. Move towards what is interesting for you. And now we have some time to answer several questions. You're welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Ekaterina. I have a question to Donna and Kelsey. To Donna and Kelsey, I am representing a consulting company, and our services are counseling businesses. And my question is as follows. Is it developed in Western market that you outsource the accountants and lawyers, and do you select large companies or smaller companies? And what are the am I understandable in formulating my question? What are the prerequisites of this choice? No.
I'll talk about it from the perspective of our companies that we work with. So we have 200 portfolio companies that we work with. The majority of them don't have the expertise in the things that you talk about, finances and accounting and legal work. So almost all of them outsource that work. They outsource it to companies who understand their business, they understand their scale and their size. So it's not for them a choice of big firms or small firms. What they need is somebody who really understands their stage of growth and their industry and their specific challenges. So we work with companies who are, really big law firms and really big accounting firms, but we also work with very small, down to individuals who have specific expertise. The key is really the value that's being provided and how it aligns with what the companies need, and then creating a relationship and a partnership where it isn't just about, I want to sell you something, but really becoming a part of understanding what does this company struggle with and how is it that I can help them at a relationship level and at a company level and a corporate and a priced sales level. But always the relationship comes first, and it's very much based on expertise and the match to the problem.
Yeah, I would echo everything that Donna said in terms of size and scale and specific knowledge set in relation to the problem at hand. In all my companies, we hire for what we call an external partner. So someone who fits us well, who will behave as though they were working with us, not for us. And so it's really about once we've identified that, and then it's just about a fit and timing. So yeah, it doesn't matter so much big, small. It's more fit, and then that really intimate relationship between bringing someone into your company as though they were a part of.
Еще вопросы?
Other questions? I would like to ask my question to our international participants. I have a verse by Andrei Chorny with this following line: "Give away and not always ask for return, and then you can open all hearts with this key." And I participate in a women's organization, a Committee of 20. It's analog of Committee of 200, the American association, where women unite in order to give to others. For those who have this, they need to share. And I believe that the degree of charity among female entrepreneurship is higher than among men. So at what point you have this need to share your ideas, your knowledge? Kelsey, what do you think about it?
I think it happens at all scales of a business, and personally as well, when people go out to, say, a networking event, which is a very traditional kind of business space. And traditionally people go and try and collect a lot of cards or hand a lot of cards out. And in my own business, I noticed a large shift when I approached those events as opposed to what's in it for me. I approached it as what's in it for any person that I encountered. So as opposed to trying to focus on what I was getting, I was always thinking, how is it I can serve you? Do I know something, or do I know someone who can help you? And those relationships, again, it kind of comes back to women's expertise in building relationships. And I think every single transaction is based on trust first. Whether it's I'm looking for a partner, or someone wants to buy one of my products, or I'm looking to hire someone, or someone wants to work for us. And I think that the notion of the reciprocity of trust, and you build that bridge by giving, not by receiving it. And I think it's a mindset that certainly needs to shift on the whole, but that is an easy one if you just start with yourself and look at what and who is around you and what you can give to that before you ask to take from it.
Thank you. Donna.
I think Kelsey's exactly right. One of my mantras that anybody who's ever talked to me in my role when I was at Startup America, they know that, Susan's over there nodding, my philosophy is always give, then get. It's not about what you can get, it's about what you can give. But this is the beautiful part that I think is an opportunity for women. So if you think about the world and where we're going and where the opportunity is, social capital, the ability to make connections and build relationships with people, is one of the most important skills for where our global economy is going. And women are natural connectors, we're natural relationship builders. So if we can take that approach of, when I go to an event, who can I meet and how can I help them? You build social capital. You build up a reputation for being someone who's helpful, a connector, a relationship builder. And it turns out that that's a very valuable asset in today's economy. So, don't do it because you're thinking, oh, I'm going to squirrel away all these points and I'll become a really important, influential person. But just know that that's a byproduct of being a person who approaches conversation by saying, what can I give you? How can I help you? Who can I introduce you to? How can I be a part of helping you to be successful? Because it turns out that if you do that, that person is also going to want you to be successful.
Thank you. Elena?
Да, я абсолютно согласна с Донной. Я не имею...
I absolutely agree with you. I don't have this entrepreneurial career like you have, but for the last 2 years, I see that not only women entrepreneurs socialize with us, but I always try to answer all letters, to all messages. And Evgeny Demin once taught me from Splat company. He was director general. He was our mentor on Forbes project. And I was surprised by his approach. He is director general of a large corporation, and he always would respond within 30 minutes to any of my letters. He was always ready to help and to arrange our production. And I was surprised because by this openness. And I said, this is the philosophy of my business too. We are also trying to help everybody we can. And I am also contributing to this. I try to be more open. I agree with Donna that women are excellent relationship builders. Other questions from the audience, please?
Rodzi. I come from Zimbabwe. I'm a crazy entrepreneur who has been married for 20 years. And for 15 years, I was an entrepreneur together with my husband, working together until 5 years ago when I started my own business, when I realized that what I was doing with my husband was not my passion and my purpose. And I moved into social entrepreneur, whereby I'm working with marginalized rural women in helping them realizing or adding value to their natural talent of handmade knitwear, exporting to mostly to Europe, especially the US and in the UK. But I have a question. My question was going to be directed to Irina, whereby she said we need to balance, we need to integrate, maybe to say in the right way, to integrate our family life and our business life, or our purposes that were sent by God on earth. I strongly feel when I moved out of the family business, my business and my husband, I didn't move out completely. My husband always wants me to be within that family business, always wants to ask ideas, every time I spare time to go to that business, he's so happy, he's so wanting to be to work and to be so involved. But every time I'm doing anything to do with my own business, he starts, for me, it's sulking, pure sulking. Or if I have to travel to the US to my customers, he starts to be not happy about it. But if it has to be about the other family business, he's happy about it. So I would want to ask you ladies in the circle to say, how do you then integrate with that? Because I feel that my personal business that I started to build 5 years ago is my purpose, and it's actually my passion. But every time I'm doing anything to do with that, he's not happy. He is quite supportive, yes. He even gave me money to start that business. But you really feel that he's not happy, unlike when I'm involved in the personal business. So I really need help on that. And a lot of women in my country are facing such problems. I don't know other women from around Africa or around the world. Thank you.
Donna?
So you're facing a challenge that really is deeper than your relationship with your husband, which is the traditional roles that we play within our families, right? The woman's traditional role historically has been as the support figure to the man's career, right? So there's a structure that gets established where everybody in the family is all in as long as it's all in around their career, their job, their thing. But it sounds as if, so my husband and I, when I first launched 1776, we struggled with a little bit of this because I was gone all the time and I was always in meetings and I was never available to return his calls, and I missed when he called during the day, and then he's mad, why don't you ever call me back? And we had what felt to me to be very childish conversations. Of course I love you. I'm still married to you. I see you at night. Why do I have to call you during the day? Right? Like, and it didn't occur to me that my husband didn't feel like he was a part of my business. Right? It was a passion to me, and he felt left behind. And I love my husband, and I obviously love men, but they can be kind of babies sometimes. Right? They can be. We have to be, and I think you made the point, we have to make the time and the investment to make them feel loved and a part of the business, so that he feels as much as you feel that your business is your joint passion. It can't be your separate passion. You're unified. You've hitched your wagon to his wagon, right? So you're yoked together walking down the path. And if you're running ahead and he's feeling left behind, it's not an equal yoking, right? So you have to find ways for him to be a part of your business as much as he felt you were a part of his business. So whether that's giving him a role, involving him in the problem solving, involving him in talking about the business. I mean, for me, I really had to sit, my husband and I actually went to lunch, and we spent literally a 3-hour lunch where I pulled out the PowerPoints and I walked him through every part of what we were trying to build with the business. Because it turned out that I never actually explained that to him. And he didn't get it, and he didn't feel like he was a part of it. And it was creating marital conflict when it was really that at a personal level, he felt left behind.
Anybody else would like to add?
Yeah, I totally agree with Donna, because I have had the same situation with my husband. But every now and then, even if I don't need his advice, I tell him that he's my muse. And he inspires me to be better and to be more successful. So he's my muse. This is his official title in my company. Tell him that.
Two more questions from... еще два вопроса. Один-два.
One or two questions? Yes.
It has been really inspiring listening to you. I have a question that's more on the practical side, because you've been talking about how your purpose and passion and being proactive. So it must be important to sit down and define your goals. How do you go about it? How do you keep focus?
So I used to set goals altogether wrong for myself. And so what that used to, so I'll tell you what it used to look like and how I changed it and why. So it used to look like I would say, in 18 months, I want my top line revenue to be 2 million. And, you know, or whatever that thing is. And I would define these really big goals really far out, which to me, 18 months is really far out. And then I started realizing that actually that is just, again, that's the outcome of a lot of other goals. So the goal is actually to operate my day tomorrow totally on time. And within those things to achieve my highest, greatest purpose in each of those items. So I took what used to be big goals, and I still do set those goals, but then I set them to the side. And I start mapping out every single small step back towards today. And then that becomes my goal. Because I found, like Elena had said earlier, that sometimes when you get a place, it's very scary. So then all of a sudden you have $2 million in top line revenue and you go, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. Now, can I do this? And so instead of focusing on something so big, too far out, that's how I do it. And I'm quite militant about my time, very actually. And I always make a list of things that I can do in 3 to 5 minutes, that if 3 to 5 minutes comes up, I can do it. Because those are the things that tend to drag me down, you know, silly things like a pile of laundry or painting my nails or, you know, just little minuscule tasks. But then ultimately I get so weighed down by this notion that there's this whole life that needs attending to, and it's going to take all of Saturday, as opposed to just, you know, being very disciplined about minutes. Just, yeah.
Thank you. Other question, please. Еще один вопрос, пожалуйста.
Добрый день.
Good afternoon, dear ladies and my colleagues. I would like to turn back and ask you, do you feel happy persons? Does your business allow you to maintain this feeling of being happy? And isn't it disturbing to your partners, your husbands and your families? And if a question pops up and a person who is unhappy next to you, and if this person is incompatible with the, your partner is incompatible with the business, so what will be your choice, your partner or your business? Well, this is not relevant in my case. My husband has always been supportive. I don't know where he derives this force from, but he is very happy about every my achievement. And he, even when I come late and I tell you what happened today and what I'm planning to do, and he wants to be part of my business, he wants to know any detail of it, and he always supports me. I believe the main thing is to make a right choice of the man, of the person who will be next to you for life. So, you see, sometimes it's easy to marry, but it is, but you see, I wanted to marry only once in my life, but it's the main thing is to find such a person. And I am who I am, and my business is part of me. My daughter is part of me. So if this person doesn't like it, so probably it's a wrong person. If a person asks me to make a choice, I will definitely select my career, because this person is wrong for me. Because my type of person should not raise this question. No.
And I actually I'm glad Elena has said that. You know, the choice of who you marry is really, really, really important. And making sure that you're selecting somebody who sees you for who you are as opposed to who they think you are or who they want you to be, right? And who you are is your gifts and your talents and your life purpose and your calling in life. And every one of us has that. So you have to find somebody who really values all of you, not just the part of you that they want because they want you to be their spouse. So there's two scenarios. One is you haven't yet married, so please do choose wisely. The other is you've already married, and so now you have somebody next to you who may or may not be supportive of your business. And there's really two scenarios. One is that genuinely from a personality perspective, that person just is not invested in your success. They're not interested in your happiness. Because if they were, and they really understood the connection between your career and your calling and your personal fulfillment as an individual, they will understand that you pursuing your career goals in your company actually makes you a better person. It makes you a better spouse. It makes you happier and more fulfilled. And so hopefully you've married somebody who will see that in you, and then it becomes a function of if they're not happy, but you know they're that kind of a person and they are in love with you and they want you to be happy, then you have a situation like I've talked about earlier where you have a disconnect and that potentially they don't feel invested personally in your success. So what do you do to help them feel like they're a part of your career as opposed to your career as something being subjected upon them, foisted on them, right? So how do you make them a part of it? Can they, is there a job they can do? Can you bring them to events? Can you make sure that they also have relationships with your coworkers, that they feel like they're comfortable coming to the office, they're not an outsider in what you're doing? And ultimately, you know, it is a partnership, so they need to feel invested in the thing that you're pursuing.
Kelsey, shortly.
Yeah, for my part, my husband is also an entrepreneur. Excuse me. And before we got married, we had a contractual conversation about our business of being married, because it's a living being, a marriage, and it was very clear that we both had big goals and big dreams, and that would require both of us to support the other one when we're not having a great day and we come home not happy, or when we do. And I think a lot of it really revolves around the communication that both of the other ladies spoke to on a very deep and daily basis, so that he can understand that what it is that I'm coming home as, whether it's full of joy or not, is not based on something that has directly to do with him. And it has to do with what it is that I'm trying to achieve, and that he supports me in doing that, and that I do the same consistently. Yeah. It's really kind of goes back to who it is that you marry, I think.
Marry wisely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kelsey. Я попытаюсь тоже еще, может быть, свой коротенький комментарий.
I would add my short comment to this.
Что многие понимают, что вопрос связан с...
I think that mostly this issue is related to the fact that a family boat sails well if one person is rowing and another person is just present in the boat, but only one person is rowing. So I think that this concept has lost its point nowadays, and I see plenty of boats which are moving forward with two excellent rowers sitting side by side with each other. It is important to feel this moment, and if the woman is really smart, she will just avoid the situation in which that question will be asked. So that situation will be diffused a lot earlier, and if she thinks about the family, she will do everything to make sure that that boat is moving ahead. But if something is really wrong, it doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur or just a person or a manager. So I wouldn't make a direct link between divorce and entrepreneurship. These are all different cases. And I would like to thank all our participants. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but I think If you want to ask questions, just come to this table, and you will be able to ask this question. And thank you very much for your participation.